So I'll start this now. Hi, everyone. Once again, my name is Mo Mankling. I'm the Policy Director at the U.S. Federation of Worker Cooperatives. Thank you so much for taking time out of your schedules to be with us today. This is our roughly once a quarter webinar where we share what is going on in advocacy in the worker co-op world, and so that folks are able to engage, ask questions. I encourage all of you to ask questions in the chat, to share your name, where you're from, your location. Feel free to ask questions at any time. We will have plenty of time for questions and answers throughout the webinar, and especially at the end. So once again, thanks to everyone for being here. So what are we going to talk about today? So I'll give a little bit of an update about what's happening with the U.S. Federation of Worker Cooperatives. We'll have advocacy updates from our phenomenal partners at the National Cooperative Business Association. We'll hear advocacy highlights from worker owners and co-op community folks from Nayrovi, Contreras, Lopez from Cooperative Home Care Associates, and Anna Evans-Goldstein from the Baltimore Roundtable for Economic Democracy. Then I will give a few general updates about what's going on in the advocacy world, and then we're going to have a celebration. We have a new bill that's being introduced on Monday, actually, at the federal level. It's called the National Worker Co-op Development and Support Act. We're very excited about it, so we'll have a moment of celebration at the end. And just as a reminder, everyone here and everyone who registered will get a recording of this webinar and the slides. So if you have any questions about that, you will definitely get that within the next few days. So just a couple updates from the Federation. The Federation's Policy and Advocacy Council call is our regular space to actually dig into a lot of these questions. You'll hear from a lot of people today. There will be a little bit less discussion today. On a monthly basis, on the first Thursdays of every month, we meet for 90 minutes to share updates and to dig into big questions that we're facing as a worker co-op movement on the advocacy front. So, how do we prepare worker owners to be advocates? How do we expand our knowledge of the difference between worker co-ops and ESOPs? Things like that. We dig into into questions, and we share experiences across our national network and sometimes international. And so that is a great space to join. It is for members only. So if you are not a member of the U.S. Federation of Worker Cooperatives, I would encourage you to join. And our next meeting is on April 4th. Next, on May 16th, we're going to have our spring member meeting. So mark your calendars. We'll send out probably after this the registration for that. And one more update that I'm very excited about is that we're going to be putting out an advocacy survey. So we'll be sending this out to everyone, both within our membership and outside of it, to get an understanding of what people are wanting us as a federation to advocate for. So we'll be focusing on our members, but we'll also be accepting feedback from other folks as well, other people within the field, just so we can get a good idea of what people are looking for. But we're going to be asking people about what are the issues you care about most, what things should we be focusing on, as there's like a limited amount of capacity and time to actually do outreach, especially at the federal level, but also, where should we be focusing our resources? So we'll be reaching out to learn more from you all about where you would like to see the Federation go. So make sure you look out for that. So you know what? I'm actually going to stop sharing now. Those are the brief updates from the Federation. And I'm excited to bring back our friend Aaliyah Ned, who is the Government Relations Director at the U.S. Federation of Worker Cooperative, at the National Cooperative Business Association. And NCBA has been a wonderful partner for many, many years in helping us to have like a really strong presence on the Hill. And we're always grateful to be working in partnership with them. So with that, Aaliyah, can you share some updates about what's going on with Congress?
Yes, absolutely. And thank you, Mo. I don't think it was too much of a slip there. Having Esteban as our board chair. So, we deeply value the partnership that we have with the Federation of Worker Co-ops and all of you, and appreciate you having me here today for this very timely discussion, as I just got back from a slew of meetings with our CEO and president, Doug O'Brien, on Capitol Hill, talking about some of the updates that I'm happy to share today. As Mo mentioned, my name is Aaliyah Ned, and I am Director of Government Relations at the National Cooperative Business Association, or NCBA-CLUSA. We are the umbrella trade association for co-ops across all sectors, including worker co-ops and the national sectoral associations like the Federation, and appreciate you all's engagement on these issues and keeping worker co-ops present and salient within the employee ownership movement, as that is a hot topic of discussion and came up in almost every meeting that I had today. We released our 2024 policy priorities, and these have been pretty consistent over the time of NCBA-CLUSA's existence. Number one, of course, is making sure that the tax treatment of cooperatives as businesses that return the profits that are made back into the members and into the communities that they serve, and not put at a disadvantage related to other businesses in tax legislation. Something that is top of mind for us is the 199A exemption that is set to expire next year, that allows cooperatives to deduct any patronage that is sent back to their members in excess of profits from their annual federal taxes. So with that expiring next year, which is also International Year of the Cooperatives in 2025, we are beginning the groundwork now in coalition with groups like this and across the co-op sectors, credit unions, agriculture, rural electric food co-ops, and the like, to engage on this issue. The second and top of mind priority for us, of course, is promoting and facilitating employee ownership through worker cooperatives. This includes making sure that co-ops can access financing through the SBA 7A program, which I won't belabor with this group here, and looking at getting legislation reintroduced this Congress with the final rule to remove prohibitive lending requirements due to new regulations that came out of the SBA. The administrator for the SBA, Isabel Guzman, will be testifying before the Small Business Committee, which is timely with the introduction of the bill that Mo mentioned next week. So we will be watching and engaging on that closely to make sure that this is brought top of mind by various members on the Small Business Committee in the House of Representatives. We also this year have added supporting the Department of Labor's Employee Ownership Initiative that was passed last year, and making sure that that initiative is financed through the annual federal budget or appropriations process at the Department of Labor. And lastly, I just want to touch on affordable housing through cooperatives. There is currently a lot of legislation on the tax side and affordable housing side, in addition to urban and suburban areas through the Farm Bill to support rural housing as well. So we're constantly engaging to make sure co-ops across the board are eligible for these programs. Representing the various cooperative sectors, we recognize that folks work in tandem with each other, and the Farm Bill, which is a huge piece of legislation, presents an opportunity to not only support affordable housing in rural urban and suburban areas to support urban gardening and the burgeoning worker co-op movement that we see in the agriculture space, but also to reauthorize the only federal program for cooperative development, the Rural Cooperative Development Grant Program. That's a lot of information that I knew I threw at you in about 5 minutes here, but I will drop the link to NCBA CLUSA's advocacy page in the chat here in just a moment. And lastly, I'll mention a save the date for our virtual Hike the Hill just after you all spring member meeting on May 20th. So hopefully folks will be energized and ready to continue connecting with members of Congress as some folks did back in October during our conference. And I'll turn it back to you, Mo.
Thank you so much, Aaliyah. As always, chock full of amazing information for our network. It's very difficult to keep up with what's going on the because we have a wonderful problem in that we have so many irons in the fire when it comes to cooperatives, and we could not do any of this work without the amazing work of Leah and the rest of the folks with NCBA CLUSA. So thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you. And I'm very excited to make sure that worker co-ops are well represented at the virtual Hike the Hill. So thanks so much. Okay, great. So we're going to keep it rolling. So next up, we're going to hear directly from a worker owner. Nayrovi Contreras Lopez from Cooperative Home Care Associates has recently been doing some phenomenal work advocating for her worker co-op. And, it's important that we hear, directly from, not just like folks like me. Like, I love doing the work that I do, but nothing beats hearing directly from worker owners about speaking about the work that they're doing, the frontline work and like the most on the ground work that is happening. So we're here just to elevate worker owners. And so Nayrovi, I'm going to turn it over to you to share about your advocacy work.
Thank you. Okay, so as she said, my name is Nayrovi. I'm a worker, I'm a home care worker, and I'm a worker owner Cooperative Home Care Associate. My experience going to Albany, it was a really unique experience since Denise told me, invite me to go there and explain me the reason that we were doing this. As said, since she told me this, I was like, yes, I want to do this. And one of the reasons that I want to do this is because I know the struggle that home care workers go through every day. And I don't know if you know, but the government HUCO is trying to cut billions of dollars from she's trying to cut billions of dollars from the home care workers, and especially from the program called I'm sorry, I'm a little bit nervous because this is my first time doing something like this. So she's trying to take money out of the program called Consumer Director Personal Assistant, as you know, CityPAP. And she's trying to cut wages and hours and we were trying to advocacy to see if they can be in our size, like approving that she don't cut the money from this program that we really needed as a home care worker. So and the second part of the when we get there, it was to advocate for the assemble members to co-sponsor the Home Care Working Saving and Reinvestment Act. As you know, the health plans are profit millions of dollars, and at the end, they're not doing their jobs. They're taking the money for every person that they had, but they're not doing their job. They don't helping us. Well, they don't helping the patients receiving what they deserve. So one of the things that what we really want is, so then can support the Home Care Saving and Reinvestment Act, a stop state for giving insurance company $1 billion that means the home care sectors by removing this, ineffective middleman, because they have this middle person between the clients and the insurance, and there's not doing the right thing, and which could be, which could be used to pay few growing home care workers need, improving service of quality, and ensure that I'm sorry, and ensure continuity of care by giving them highest wages for home care workers. If you have any question.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Nayrovi, for sharing your story. You know, it's really great to know that like you're new to this, because you just spoke so well towards it, and especially just the energy that you're talking at. I think that with which you're talking about this is it's pretty inspiring to me as someone who tries to help people to become advocates. It's so important to hear, you know, even though this is like your first time doing this and maybe your first time actually doing advocacy work, you know, it's really just about speaking towards the work that you're doing and speaking and using your voice as a worker. That was, I'm wondering if you all have any like next steps after the home care, like to help advocate for the Home Care Savings and Reinvestment Act. Thanks, Denise, for sharing some information about that in the chat. So is there anything that you would like encourage other people to do to support your work, or any next steps that you all are thinking about?
Yeah, I always trying to let the home care workers know that they can raise their voices. They can speak them for what they need, because I work with home care workers every day, and I know the struggle. So I know that sometimes, and even the City PAP program, when I went to Albany, I saw all these people that at the end they don't need to be fired for something that they really deserve. So, and I saw all these people trying to fight something for a lady that she just want to get the money for the lowest income and the people that really need it. So I just always encourage people to do and to raise their voices and to go and speak for their own experience.
Yeah, I'll just add.
Awesome.
Thank you, Nayrovi.
Great.
I'll just add.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that actually on March 22nd, CHCA is trying to get a busload of home care workers, and we're going to partner with 1199 SEIU, and we're having a rally in Albany to, you know, to let the governor know that, come on, you know, if you need to find money, please find it somewhere else, not on the back of our workers. So we're going to go protest the cuts that she's trying to do. It's a $1 million cut. Is at about $2.54 each hour for our personnel assistants for the CDPAP program. So we're going to work together on the 25th to kind of, and we learned today that the Senate and the Assembly people have it in their one house budget already. So they're also kind of, you know, be out there with us also, the legislators, rallying against these cuts. So yeah, so we'll be there on Monday the 22nd. Those are our next steps.
Oh, thank you so much. Everyone give it up for Denise Hernandez, who is one of our illustrious board members, also a worker owner at Cooperative Home Care Associates, who brought Nayrovi along for this advocacy ride. Thanks to both of you so much for being here and being willing to share your stories. Again, it's just so important for people to actually see you show up and see you using your voice and to advocate for your workers. So thank you so much. Now we're going to turn towards go a little south to Baltimore, and we're going to hear from Anna Evans-Goldstein, who's going to talk a little bit about the work that the Baltimore Roundtable for Economic Democracy is doing to organize around the Co-op statute in Maryland.
Thanks, Mo. Hi, everyone. My name's Anna. I'm with Baltimore Roundtable for Economic Democracy. We provide technical assistance and financing for worker cooperatives in Maryland with a focus in Baltimore City. We are currently one of the states in the United States that does not have a worker cooperative statute. There's about 30 states that do, but Maryland does not. So often what our co-ops have to do is pick between the other entities that are available. So usually like an LLC or a closed corporation in order to incorporate as a business in the state. And the way that those entities are structured in Maryland, any which way you put it, they don't fit fully for a worker cooperative, especially with an LLC. There's a number of issues that come up around workers' compensation that sometimes end up being so prohibitively expensive that businesses won't reach break even due to the way that insurance companies are calculating what the workers' compensation would be for worker co-ops who are made up of people that are both employees but also owners. As I'm sure other people have run into, people get really confused if they're unfamiliar with worker co-ops that someone can be both a worker and an owner. And so, we are striving to fix this issue. We've been doing a lot of education around how our co-ops are facing this sort of trying to fit themselves like a round peg into a square hole by trying to conform to these entities that don't really match their needs. And it's been a process. Maryland has only a 3.5-month assembly session. And so it often can take multiple years to get something passed. But we've been pushing ahead. We've gotten a lot of people together over the course of many years to determine what the type of bill would look like. What are the things that we want to have to be part of our worker cooperative statute? What do we not want? Looking at the models of other states that have passed similar legislation before us, and gathering many of the worker owners throughout Maryland who are interested in seeing an entity created specifically for worker cooperatives so that they can do their business easier and so that incoming new businesses can incorporate with a lot more ease, a lot less confusion, and also ultimately so our governmental and financial institutions actually recognize what worker cooperatives are doing, because as it is now, a worker cooperative that is, say, incorporated as an LLC, if they go to a bank or try to get a permit at a government office, people still, because they're not familiar and because it's not encoded in the Maryland law, people don't have something to refer to, and they don't understand when co-ops go to them to do the business that they need to do. So that's where we are at the moment. This Maryland General Assembly is currently taking place. We'll see if we pass out of the Senate side this year, to be determined, but it's been a lot of looking through legal documents and also talking with our worker owners in Maryland to have them contact their elected representatives to encourage them to pass this bill. So that is where we're at. It will probably take us a little bit of time, but we are in it for the long haul so that we can try to make Maryland a really friendly place for worker cooperatives.
Thanks so much, Anna. I was really happy to have you present on this because I think state worker co-op statutes can be like really tricky, and especially in the states that actually have a long history in cooperatives, right? Like when it could be difficult because, you know, when the laws were created, which at this point could have been like decades ago, right? Or several decades ago, that we weren't really considering, there wasn't an ability to consider what is happening now, right? So current events, like how people are forming, this like shift towards cooperatives that are formed as LLCs, but have the structure of a worker cooperative. So it's really important for us to be sharing best practices around how people are forming their statutes. I'll talk a little bit more about some of the other states that are working on similar work right now, but I'm wondering, Anna, if you could just talk like a little bit more about like how, like who's like involved in the conversations? Is it like, I know that Bread has a staff, like how have worker owners like been inputting into it? What's that conversation like on the ground in Baltimore, and are there folks from around the state that you talk to?
Yeah, I mean, we've been working on this for a number of years, dating back to pre-COVID. We took a little break during COVID, but you know, some of those early conversations had to do with figuring out what the pain points really were for worker cooperatives. And so that involved a lot of conversations in and around different worker cooperatives. And of course, Bread, you know, works with a wide range of co-ops. So we've also seen all of the issues that the co-ops we work with have faced, and kind of figuring out, okay, what are the major pain points that they've been facing, and what are the things that we're trying to solve for. And then, you know, fast forward to today, you know, when we had our hearing in early February at the Maryland General Assembly's committee, you know, the people that put in testimony, both written and oral, were worker owners. Bread was obviously there, but the most compelling stories are the ones where a worker owner is standing in front of their elected representative saying, this has been very confusing for me, or I have not been able to reach break even because of workers' comp. And, you know, it's those individual and, you know, worker co-op stories that actually explain to people what's happening on the ground and why this is such a necessary statute to have.
Thanks so much, Anna. Yeah, it's you know, I think we've heard this like again and again, even just in this webinar, that there's nothing that beats actual constituents reaching out to their electeds, and nothing that replaces hearing directly from worker owners and the people that are like providing the services that like are direct services to co-ops. So and you know, I really want to shout out Bread for doing the hard work, because it does take years, and I think I think it can be really frustrating for people to look at passing a law and think in terms of years instead of terms of months. You know, it makes me think about, you know, the bill that we're going to talk about in a few minutes. You know, we started work on that in 2017, and it is now 2024, and it's finally getting introduced. And it's hard work, it's long work. Brett is doing some amazing, just like amazing organizing, and I think being really connected and to to like businesses and to the people that are actually running into the challenges the most, and being constantly in tune with them is so important. So thank you so much for sharing.
Thanks.
And giving us that update. Oh, all right. So we're going to shift now to some. I'll shout out some things that we're hearing on the ground, and then we'll go on to the main event. So. Okay. I wanted to share that, so, you know, as Anna was about, in Guam, and also Massachusetts. Hi, folks. Apologies for the hiccup here. I wonder if you might have actually been able to hear me, but sorry about the technical difficulties. So I'll just start again. Can folks hear me okay? I can see a couple of you. So, okay, great. Perfect. So I'm just going to share a few updates from the Federation side. I will back up a couple minutes. Thanks so much. Okay, I'm glad that it seems like it's working okay now. So in the past few months, we've been hearing a lot that's happening on the ground. Again, our main way of hearing those things is the Policy and Advocacy Council that happens on the first Thursdays of the month. Exciting news from Washington State. If you were a part of past worker co-op policy pulses last year, then you know that Washington recently passed a comprehensive bill to promote employee ownership, and they created a revolving loan fund and a committee on employee ownership, like an advisory panel, and so they're creating a big initiative to focus on like not just worker co-ops but also ESOPs in the state of Washington, and you know, that just happened last year, and now they're actually starting to like form the committee. One of our executive committee members, John McNamara from the Northwest Cooperative Development Center, is actually on that advisory committee. So it's great to see those things develop. Also in Massachusetts, there was their advisory committee on employee ownership at the state level. They also had their first meeting, which has been a long time coming. That bill passed a really long time ago, and they finally organized themselves to get together. And it's really important for our folks to actually show up in these spaces so that we can push these like employee ownership commissions to make sure that we're centering worker cooperatives and that they're infusing democratic practices throughout what they're doing. So it's exciting. Similar to what is happening in Baltimore, organizing around the statute. You may have heard me before I dropped out. In Guam, they're actually also organizing around a worker co-op statute. They're trying to create a limited cooperative statute, which is pretty cool. And so there's a lot of different balls moving forward in a lot of different states, and I would encourage folks to stay tuned into our newsletters and to our Policy and Advocacy Council to get updates on those things, because the best way to make this stuff happen is by sharing ideas. So the Washington State bill passed really quickly because it leaned on the successes of, like Colorado and California, and all of that happened because there was connection through the network of the U.S. Federation of Worker Co-ops. So those are just a few updates about what's going on around the country, and I'm going to move on to kind of our final topic for today, which is the National Worker Co-op Development and Support Act. As I said earlier, this bill has a long history. We actually started working on this bill in 2017 with Representative Keith Ellison from Minnesota. And when he exited office, this bill died a little bit for a little while. And then through advocacy through one of our members, A Slice of New York, the bill got resurrected with Representative Ro Khanna from California. And this bill is going to be introduced on Monday, which is really exciting. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the act, what it does, who it's for. I encourage folks to ask questions in the chat. There's plenty of time for questions. And then at the end, we'll talk a little bit about what you can do to support. So the National Worker Co-op Development and Support Act, that may be the last time that I say the whole name because it's quite long. But so the bill is meant to pull all the threads together that have been kind of stated in different ways through different federal bills. So the Work Act and the Chips and Science Act and the American Rescue Plan and the Rural Cooperative Business Grant Program. I know these are a lot of technical terms, but or technical programs. All these federal level programs talk about cooperatives. A lot of them include employee ownership. This bill aims to pull those threads together and tell a story to the federal government that there is a lot of interest on both sides of the aisle in worker ownership. Let's bring all of those conversations together and make sure that federal level agencies are coordinated in their support of worker co-ops. All of the stresses that Anna was pointing to, especially in what she was saying about like the challenges that worker co-ops face simply because of their business structure. This bill aims to help alleviate some of these, at least at the federal level, and then hopefully translate to the state and local levels. So I'm going to go through what this bill does. So it directs the federal agencies, so we're talking about the Small Business Administration, the IRS, the Treasury Department, the Department of Commerce, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, and the Department of Labor to implement programs supporting worker co-ops. That doesn't mean that there's going to be a program for cooperatives in each one of those offices, but it means that worker co-ops should be infused in those programs. So if there's an initiative for good jobs or for workforce development or for immigrants, like looking for ways that their programs can support worker co-ops and expand the field. It includes educational materials in multiple languages. So what we're hoping is that through this bill, we can do a lot of the work that we've been hoping to do, which is serve communities that are not just English speakers. So, you know, it's my dream that we can build a big cohort of advocates that speak many different languages and represent the many different communities of the worker co-op movement. And hopefully bills like this will lead federal departments to create materials in other languages. Second, this establishes the U.S. Council on Worker Cooperatives. So this is basically coordinating all of those agencies that I was talking about before and bring all of their information together. So like, what is the USDA doing? What is the Department of Labor doing? What is the SBA doing? And make sure that these people are talking to each other so that you're not seeing inconsistencies across the federal government, that you're able to see people sharing ideas, sharing what works, so that we can focus on what matters, which is getting money into the hands of small businesses that are worker co-ops. So this council would be housed within the Department of Labor. So Aaliyah mentioned earlier, the Work Act, which is a bill that created a division of employee ownership within the Department of Labor. I will say it has been probably the most positive experience of my life working with the Department of Labor in educating them about worker co-ops. They're very interested in it. Actually, just this past week, perhaps on Monday, I think, actually, time really flies. Denise and I actually were a part of a presentation to the Department of Labor that was attended by 50 staff members of the Department of Labor to just help them understand the worker co-op model. So the Department of Labor feels like a really good place for this clearinghouse of information and for them to be the ones that are kind of leading this charge. It also creates a small business lending pilot program through the Small Business Administration just for worker cooperatives. So it's going to provide $60 million in loans over 10 years and addresses a really big hurdle that co-ops have continuously run into. So if you have tried to get a loan from the SBA and you're a worker owner, you probably know that the biggest hurdle is the personal guarantee. The personal guarantee means that one or two people have to personally, as an individual, guarantee a loan to the business. That doesn't make sense for worker cooperatives, obviously, and the SBA has continually not looked at and created a solution that will actually work for co-ops. In this bill, this lending pilot program will actually require that the SBA not require a personal guarantee. So the loans through this program they would have to figure out a way to fulfill that need without requiring a personal guarantee from an individual. So I know this is a ton of information. That's why we're going through it slowly. All of these slides will be available to you also afterwards. So a little bit about what this bill does, like really, what's this bill going to do? Like, what is this council and this pilot program? Like, how are these things actually going to help? So it's going to provide stable employment for communities. It's going to make sure that jobs stay local. So it's going to help with conversions and with startups alike. It will help people that are incorporated as a worker co-op, but it's also open to LLCs. So that is really important. It will provide support to existing businesses. So if people are looking to convert, it'll help them to actually convert their business into the worker co-op structure. It will give retiring business owners like that option. So they'll be able to see that that's an option. It'll help people to understand that selling to your workers is a possibility. And it's going to improve access to money. It's going to improve access to technical assistance and really just make it easier for worker co-ops to interact with the government. And you know, as mentioned, it's going to remove regulatory barriers like the personal guarantee issue that challenge co-ops. The thing that I think is like most important is that this bill is going to elevate worker co-ops as a policy priority. This is actually the first bill that specifically focuses on worker co-ops. So the Work Act and the Main Street Employee Ownership Act and even the Chips and Science Act had to do with worker co-ops and ESOPs under this bigger banner of employee ownership, worker ownership. This is specifically just for our folks, for worker co-ops. And as many of you know, Congress tends to be in a gridlock lately. So while it could be a really long road towards actually passing this bill, what's really important is actually just introducing it, just getting the conversation started and saying, hey, federal government, we actually really need to be focusing on just worker co-ops. It provides legitimacy to our movement. It shines a light on the good jobs that are being created at worker co-ops. And it just shows that there is interest across the government in investing in worker co-ops. So I know we're going to end. What can we do? So a couple things. So please shout out Representative Rokana for support of worker co-ops and introducing this bill. I think it might be at Rokana. I will make sure that his social media information is included in the slides when we send it out. We're also going to have a party. So if you are in the Bay, so in the San Jose area, A Slice of New York is going to be hosting an introduction party. So 3 p.m. in San Jose, tell all your friends who are in the area. Representative Khanna will be there. You'll hear from some speakers from Democracy Work Institute and I think Arizmendi Co-op Association and Niles Pie, and of course the Slice of New York. There's going to be a pizza party afterwards. It's going to be a great moment of celebration. So I know not all of us will be there. Sadly, I will not be there, and I will miss out on this great pizza. But if you are in the Bay Area, I encourage you to go there. Finally, use the hashtag worker co-ops work on social media to share the news about this bill and highlight worker co-ops that you know and love. As we've said many times, hearing people share their stories about their worker co-ops is one of the best ways to elevate our work. So those are 3 specific ways that you can like interact with the bill. We're also still recruiting sponsors for the bill. So if you want to reach out to your representative on either side of the aisle, but especially Republicans, to continue to demonstrate just how like bipartisan this work is, please reach out to me. I will add the email here, policy@usworker.coop. Please reach out to me. I'm happy to help folks reach out to the representatives. So it doesn't have to be by Monday. We'll continue to push for co-sponsors for the bill for the rest of the year. So we have the rest of the time just for questions. So I know it's not a ton of time, but I'm happy if anyone wants to come off mute or raise your hand in the stack, or just like chime in on the chat. If you have any questions, just let me know. I don't see any questions right now. So if you're thinking about it, please chime in the chat. Maybe I'll just say, this is a pretty big moment for us to have a bill that's just about worker co-ops. It has taken the input of everyone to do this. So this bill was, it started in as I said, in 2017, and it involved doing interviews. And this was way back when the Federation had just a couple of staff members, and I think Dowing might have had a Democracy Work Institute might have had 10 staff members, and we did interviews with people and just asked them what challenges are you running into? What should we be advocating for? And it took on its first form, and it's iterated so many times. And now that we're finally at introduction, it feels great to know that this has been vetted through our Policy and Advocacy Council several times, through all of our partners, and it's good to know that this bill has though it took a long time to get here, that we've really thoughtfully walked through it. So I see one question in the chat from Erin. Are there any specific social media graphics and content that we can repurpose? I love this question. So the cute graphic on the left, actually there are social media posts that have these in it. I will make sure that they are shared in the recap that will be sent to everybody via email. So I'll add it in the slides, and you'll be able to access it that way. So thanks for that. And I think in that, we'll also be putting out a call for support for the bill. So at this moment, there's not really necessarily need to formally endorse but it is really helpful to know like who supports this bill. So when you get the outreach information that I'll enclose with all of this, there will be a sign on, and it's just an opportunity for you to say like, we support this bill. It's not necessarily going in a letter to Congress at this moment, though it may in the future. So it'll be an ask for you to sign on as an individual or as an organization. And so the more that we can build that up and illustrate that there are like hundreds and thousands of folks who are interested in this and want to support it, the better. So you'll get all of that in the recap. All right. If there are no other questions, that is it for tonight. I'll just wrap by saying we have a couple of really exciting things coming up. On Monday, we're having a webinar on social co-ops. So we'll be hearing from the Rocky Mountain Employee Ownership Center and I think a couple other folks just about this kind of like model of like social cooperatives. I will be there to learn just as much as you all will. Our council for for co-ops that are primarily run by immigrants, the Mike Council, also known as the Mike Council, is happening next week. We're having a worker co-op startup webinar happening next week, and our Racial and Economic Justice Council is going to be meeting a little bit later. So a lot of things coming up here. If you found this webinar helpful, please consider becoming a monthly sustainer of the Federation, or even giving a one-time donation. Like every single dollar goes directly towards creating things like this. And especially, I will especially say, being able to create this space that is not just an English speaking space, but also interpreted into Spanish, so that we can make a space where like the wide majority of our membership and our worker co-op community is able to participate is so important. So if you have the means, please consider donating. Thank you all so much. I really appreciate all of you taking time on your Wednesday to be with us. Thank you again to Aaliyah, to Denise, to Nayrovi, to Anna. Thank you all so much for being a part of tonight and sharing your stories. We appreciate all of you, and we will have our next Policy Pulse, I think, in July. So we'll see you in a couple months. Thanks, everyone.